Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, I thought that I would talk about this fight that is coming up next month, I believe on May 22nd. If I'm wrong about the date, let me know, but it happens somewhere around there. Anyway, so the fight that I'm going to be talking about today is the Jose Ramirez versus Josh Taylor fight. I think that this is an excellent fight, man. I think that this is an excellent fight. This so far of the year is the biggest fight of the year, at least from what I can remember. And there are some pretty big fights upcoming. You got Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders, and there's a couple of other ones. Miguel Berchelt versus Oscar Valdez. That was a pretty big one too. And there might be a couple of others that I'm forgetting, but when it comes down to it, so far this is the biggest matchup of the year. Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez. I believe it is going to be for all the marbles, meaning that it's going to be for all the belts. So I believe Jose Ramirez holds two belts right now. I believe Josh Taylor holds two belts right now. And it's going to be a complete unification match, which is going to make this match way more interesting. And on top of that, this is probably, in my opinion, when it comes to all the people within most recent years that have unified divisions like Terrence Crawford, Charlo, and Alexander Usyk, this debatably might be the most talented division out of all of them. I don't think Terrence Crawford necessarily was in a 140-pound division that was overtly talented, because you can kind of debate that the guys that he beat to get the belts were not A-class fighters. Maybe Victor Postal. I might actually have to change my mind about Victor Postal, because he actually gave Jose Ramirez a very tough fight. I thought that fight was 7 rounds to 5 either way, so I have to give him a lot of credit there. But besides Victor Postal, I wouldn't necessarily say that a lot of the other fighters that he fought there were A grade, from what I would say. When it comes to Jermell Charlo, even though the division seems somewhat talented, I don't really know if you would call a lot of those fighters their A class either. A certain amount of people would disagree, but when I take a look at J Rock and Jarrett Hurd, I mean, this is just what I say. If let's take a look and say, if Canelo Alvarez were to fight one of these guys next, would it be even a 70-30 fight? Do we think it would be a 70-30 fight if J Rock Williams were to fight Canelo Alvarez next? Or if Jarrett Hurd were to face him next? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, of course, people think that at least it would be 70-30 if Jermell Charlo faced him. Now, in my opinion, it might even be lower than that, because I think the Charlo brothers are tailor-made for Canelo Alvarez. But besides the point, what I mean is that when you go up even against the elite fighters, if it's not an A-class fight, then they're not A-class fighters. And Canelo versus those guys, they're not A-class fights. So in my opinion, they're not A-class fighters. But if you were to have Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez, and Regis Prograis versus, let's say, if they went up in weight against Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr., it still would be an A-class fight. Maybe it wouldn't be looked at as big as some of the other fights that could happen out there, but it still would be counted as fighting against A-class fighters. So that's why, in my opinion, whoever wins this fight, they will not only have unified a division, they will have unified the most talented division, basically within recent years, or completely unified a division overall to where it was more talented than the other divisions that were unified, if that makes sense. So yeah. So let's just get down to it, man. Who do I think is going to win this fight and why? Well, I think that this is a great matchup, man, but I do think that there is a clear favorite here. I got to go with my guy Josh Taylor on this one. I think Josh Taylor is all around the better boxer when it comes to almost every category. Obviously, he can box on the outside, but if you've seen him in that Regis Prograis fight, he was able to actually suffocate Regis Prograis a certain amount on the inside, which is decently impressive, because Regis Prograis, I believe, was not as lengthy as Josh Taylor. He's decently powerful, decently fast, not a bad counterpuncher. I thought that the last thing Josh Taylor would want to do against a Regis Prograis was to try and go inside, but actually it ended up working to his advantage. He actually, I thought, was able to back up Regis Prograis a little bit of the time. He was able to hurt him a little bit, back him up, back him off. He was able to tire him out a little bit in the second half of the fight. And I thought he won the fight 7 rounds to 5. It was a close fight, but, he won at the end of the day. So Josh Taylor deserves a lot of credit, man. He's also gotten past Victor Postal, probably the second most dominant win over Victor Postal anyone's had over him. Of course, Terrence Crawford still holds the most dominant win over Victor Postal today. When it comes down to it, man, he also beats Baranchyk, I believe is that one dude's name. Really, the only names that I haven't seen him beat in the division are Ramirez and That one dude, Zepeda, I believe his name is Jose Zepeda. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. But he fought Jose Ramirez not that long ago. A lot of people actually thought Zepeda won that fight. But just fought Barancek not too long ago, knocked him out in like 6 rounds in a very tough fight. If I'm pronouncing his name wrong, correct me. I could be thinking of a completely different guy. But Josh Taylor, when I take a look at him, I do believe that he is the all-around better boxer. I do believe that not only can he fight on the outside very well, he can possibly even beat Jose Ramirez on the inside. I believe that he is the best natural boxer when it comes to this division. I truly do believe that. I think he showed it against Regis Prograis. I think he showed it against Victor Postal. You can debate that he has 2 A-class wins on his resume. Even though I've said in the past that Victor Postal is debatably not an A-class fighter, you maybe could debate him as an A- fighter, especially after I just recently rewatched the Jose Ramirez fight, because I do consider Ramirez an A-class fighter, and it was a 7 rounds to 5 fight, so Victor Postal deserves credit to a certain degree. But when it comes down to it, I do believe Josh Taylor will win this fight. I believe the best strategy for Josh Taylor, and I say this strategy a lot, especially when it comes to, fighters that tend to be slick and maneuverable versus pressure fighters. I think that it would be a good idea for Josh Taylor at first to kind of, move at angles, to kind of move around, stay on his feet, stay on his toes, kind of use the jab, definitely use the jab with Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez, in my opinion, is not the most defensively responsible fighter. He does not have bad head movements. It's not like he has the worst defense I've ever seen, but it's not elite in either category. He can be hit. I think the best thing to do is work off your jab, maybe throw a left, because I believe Josh Taylor is southpaw, throw a left cross, and then follow it to the body maybe with a right hook, and then maybe go on the inside a little bit, throw an uppercut, because Jose Ramirez, from what I've, seen in a couple of fights, is vulnerable to those uppercuts on the inside a little bit, so we'll see what happens there. I think that Josh Taylor, to be honest with you, he has the potential to box, I'm not going to say box circles around Jose Ramirez. He does have the potential to make this a somewhat dominant performance. And what I mean by that is that he has the potential to make this an 8 rounds to 4 fight, which is still pretty dominant when you take a look at it, especially if you're in a fight, against another A-class fighter. That would be a very dominant performance. That might even move him up on my top 10 pound for pound list, because right now I have him at number 10. But we'll see what happens. For Jose Ramirez, what do I think that he has to do to win this fight? Well, also, let's continue for Josh Taylor, because I think there might be a little bit more. I think Josh Taylor here and there is going to have to go on the inside with Jose Ramirez, but I think he's going to have to tie him up a little bit here and there. You don't want to risk it completely on the inside with him. I think that Josh Taylor's going to have to be on the inside a little bit with Jose Ramirez more than, say, Billy Joe Saunders should be on the inside with Canelo, because I end up, kind of laying out this strategy a certain amount of times for fighters, but I think that it might be a better idea, because I think he can beat Jose Ramirez on the inside at times, and I think that he can back him up, which might make Jose Ramirez a little bit, more uncomfortable. So I think that'd be interesting, because I'm not sure how well Jose Ramirez would be on the back foot. I can't remember a fight where Jose Ramirez was completely on the back foot recently, at least. So I'd have to see that. He usually is a pressure fighter. He usually is going to come forward. Now, what do I believe that Jose Ramirez has to do to win this fight? I believe he does have to pressure Josh Taylor, and I believe that's exactly what he's going to have to do, or what he is going to do, excuse me. But he's going to have to utilize his jab a lot. I think he's going to have to mix it up. He's going to have to jab to the head repeatedly, double jab, sometimes triple jab. Jab once to the head, jab once to the body. Follow it with the right cross to the body, follow it with the right cross to the head, maybe follow it with a left hook to the body or a left hook to the head. He has a very good left hook. I think he has very underrated power. He knocked out Maurice Hooker within 6 rounds. Virgil Ortiz, who's a natural welterweight, who has very good power, couldn't even do that to Maurice Hooker. So, Jose Ramirez is a very talented fighter, but I do see faults in his game. I'm sure there's some faults in Josh Taylor's game, and this is one fault I do see with him, and he is going to have to be careful with this. Sometimes Josh Taylor is a little bit too hittable on the inside. Sometimes he likes to stay in there a little bit too much, and he has to be careful with that, because I've seen him get a little bit hurt against Regis Prograis with that. So he's got to be careful, because Jose Ramirez, I'm not necessarily sure where his power is, but it's potentially more powerful than Regis Prograis, and a certain amount of people may not agree with that, because Regis Prograis does look very powerful, but I keep remembering that knockout that he had over Maurice Hooker, and I said, wow, he must have had a hell of a punch to knock out Maurice Hooker in that amount of time, and I think he does. So if you want to beat Josh Taylor, Try to get him in a slugfest. Try to get him on the inside. If you do get him on the inside, sometimes he kind of just sits there a little bit too much for his own good, I think, because he's trying to find counters. Move to the side, kind of like Mikey Garcia does. Move off at an angle, shift, and then, try to hit him to the body. Try to get him with an uppercut, maybe a left hook. Try to get him something like that. I think that that's the best way for Jose Ramirez to try to win this fight. But I don't know if that's going to work because I don't know what Josh Taylor's going to do in this fight. But I do think Josh Taylor needs to be careful. He needs to fight the right fight. I think that he mainly needs to box circles around Jose Ramirez. I think he mainly needs to move around him, utilize his jab. Of course, be offensive enough, throw, because Jose Ramirez, even though he can be somewhat of a combination puncher, he's not necessarily, a combination puncher that I've seen in other fighters. He mainly is, he'll kind of go forward, jab, 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 or at least he'll try to, he'll throw 1-2s, 1-2-3s. Sometimes, Josh Taylor, he can be a very good combination puncher. He can be a very good 1-2 puncher. I think he has a very good jab. I think he's decently fast. He also has decent power himself, so Jose Ramirez will have to watch out for that. I believe Josh Taylor will win this fight because I do think he is all around the better fighter. But Josh Taylor could very possibly lose this fight if he doesn't fight the right fight. If he possibly gets entangled on the inside, if he gets caught in a fist fight, up close with him. I don't think he wants to constantly do that. I think that you want to do that sometimes, maybe in the middle rounds, especially maybe to tire him out a little bit. And maybe Josh Taylor could even possibly get a stoppage later on. But he can very well win this fight if he just plays his cards right. But we'll see if he's going to do that. So it's going to be very interesting. I personally believe Josh Taylor will win this fight. I'm going to say 8 rounds to 4. That's what I'm going to say, 8 rounds to 4. And some people might even look at that as a little bit too much. But I just think it's the styles. I think Jose Ramirez is even potentially better than Regis Prograis. Debatably, you can debate that. Some people would disagree. It's really up to you with what you see. But when it comes down to it, I think they're pretty much at least on the same level. But I think the styles, Josh Taylor has the potential to outbox him 8 rounds to 4. He has that potential, but I need to see him do it. And I also am going to say this, and I don't like to cast a shadow on this, but I do think it needs to be said. Jose Ramirez decisions sometimes are a little bit iffy, so we'll see what happens. I guess I can't necessarily say the Victor Postol one was that iffy, because that fight could have went either way, but there was another one, I believe, against Jose Zepeda that was a bit iffy. I'll have to rewatch it, but I thought the scorecards were a bit weird on that one, but we'll see what happens in this one. It'll be very interesting. I think Josh Taylor will pull it out, though. I believe he's going to get it by unanimous decision. I would not be surprised if it was by late stoppage, meaning, latter round stoppage, and then later in the fight. But we'll see what happens. But that's my prediction. I'm going with Josh Taylor by unanimous decision, or later on in the fight stoppage. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know who you are picking in this fight and who you think is going to win. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching.